We are live. Welcome to the Affray community event. We are here with Corvus, the senior sound designer, on this wonderful evening in the middle of February, one day before Valentine's Day. What better way before you go to celebrate with your loved ones and buy chocolates or go on dates for White Castle than to learn about the incredible sound design that Corvus has been working so hard to cook up. So I know that last time we had you was back in August. It was either August or September of last year. And I think a lot of the work that you were doing was stuff that wouldn't necessarily, people wouldn't be able to hear until now. So what do you got for us? What are we looking at here?
Oh gosh. Yeah, it was a while ago. Also, you dropping White Castle just now is giving me all sorts of feelings. I'm very hungry now. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
It's been a while. It's okay. I love the sliders. I mean, I don't know, it's just weird. I don't know. We shouldn't be talking about products other than our own, frankly. It's been a while. Point 15 came out. I don't even know when that was. Was that October? I think so.
Yes, it was October Halloween of last year.
Yeah, it was Halloween.
Yeah. And it was a wild ride, and that was my first update working on the game, and now we're just wrapping up, trying to wrap up the next one as soon as possible. So there's been a lot of things happening, and so I can tease some stuff today, talk about some certain things, but I actually am I'm being shot at in the game right now. Don't worry about it. There's a lot of things that I'm dead. Well, I just quit out of that professional. There's a lot of things I can't show because of the sort of level of importance, I guess I say, of the things that I have been doing are sort of secretive. So there's a lot of things right now that are just be quiet, don't show it. I'll still do my best to show some stuff, but at this point I would like to also introduce Cools, who is a sound designer on the team, and he's been doing amazing work. And in case you don't know who Cools is, he's been working here for a long time, like a really long time.
Yeah, I'm an old man.
He's like one of the yes, he's very old, as you can hear. Like he can barely speak. He's holding himself together by all his I'm terrible at making jokes. But yeah, no, it's great to have him here because he is, in case you don't know about him, you absolutely should. He has been integral to the audio department for a long time. He does a lot of the sounds that I'm going to use the term you know and love, assuming you do. But yeah, so he's hugely important to the game and also to this update that we've been working on, point 16. And he's here today to show us some stuff as well. So I'm very excited to have him here. That means I don't have to just sit here and say, oh, I could show you that, but it's secret. Because he can actually show you some very practical things. So from my end, I'm going to talk a bit about engine stuff, a bit about creative direction stuff. And then Cools is also going to take you into the depths of Reaper and look at sound design and how it happens there. But
yeah, let
that's
me know
a brief overview.
Go into that, by the way, but I'll let you speak for now.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, because I love speaking so much.
Yeah, you sure do.
Terrible. Oh wow. Okay, got some attitude. Yeah. Well, keep an eye out for this guy. Yeah, no, so point 15, I hope everyone liked. There's a lot of things that we did in point 15 that were new. I mean, a lot of things were revamped, a lot of just giving the mixing sort of a once-over. It's still far from perfect, but we refined a lot of how, especially firearms balance across each other. There's a bunch of new things that we added to really nail down the fact that, you can be... a lot of sounds you can be listening to to as you're the person making them, and then those same sounds might be emanating from a person near you, and so there was a lot of work put into, okay, we got to really clean this up and make sure that we can tweak those independently from one another. And if we need the sound louder when we're just listening to it first person, we can make it louder, and for everyone else it stays the same. So a lot of cleanup activities. Beyond that, also sort of adaptive music. First venture into that, the pit combat, which hopefully everyone here has played, had some really fun music written by Venomous, and then built into this dynamic music system, which has been something that Afra has been wanting to do for a long time. And now we're starting to finally be able to make use of that sort of technology. In the pit fight, I don't know who has noticed, but whenever an enemy got closer, you change the tracks. When certain things happened, it transitioned between pieces. That's something that we want to expand to the rest of Area 12 and to the rest of the game as time goes on. It's an ongoing process, so that was very exciting in 0.15.
So,
I think we got a subtitle system, I think, was also new in 0.15. There's just a lot of stuff in 0.15 that we're very happy with and that we just got to continue in 0.16.
I'm kind of curious. What is the technology that you're using for changing the tracks with different enemies and different interactions? Because I remember ages ago I saw a documentary on like Halo 3, and they showed that like, oh, you go to these spawn points and this is what changes tracks. But obviously that's like 10 years ago, so I'm assuming the tech is very different in terms of like having tracks during different dynamic moments in the game.
Yes, it's the base principle, which actually has been expanded upon in 0.16. Maybe I could talk a little bit about that, but let's jump into pit combat because that's a great example, I think, because I don't think it was finished the last time I talked to you, but now it is. So I can just hop in here and pull it up. So the basics way of just when it starts and when it ends is literally just you walk into that area of the pit and it starts this event, which we're seeing on screen right now, I hope. That's the basic. And then at some point you leave a volume, and then it like a big box that's placed in the level. Eventually you walk out of it and it just stops the music. But everything that happens while you're inside the box is dictated by everything that's here, essentially. So let me quickly make sure that my FOD is actually unmuted so you can hear it. There we go. So what we have in here is basically a layout of all the different music tracks, or I say tracks. I say layer. You can call them layers, stems, whatever. All of these layers come together to produce the final piece of music that we hear in the game, and they're sorted here into sections. When we look at the pit fight, it's sort of the key behind my dynamic music is really looking at the gameplay situation and thinking about, okay, what sort of states can it be in? What sort of parameters should we look at to control the outcome of the music ultimately? Because linear music, as you might hear in film or when you're listening on Spotify, it's got a progression that's set in stone. It always goes the same way. In music for video games, we just don't have that luxury. We got to be adaptive to what the player is doing. And the player can really be doing anything if we're not watching them very carefully. So in this first section, they're all labeled. So I guess to explain what is going on, all of these are the layers as mentioned. And then up here is basically where the logic of everything happens. So everything that's white is what is called a destination marker. That's a place we can jump to from any point within this timeline. Anything that's blue, except for this little thing up here, which is just tempo and time signature information. Everything that's blue is just loops. Like we just loop in this section, and anything that's green is something that takes us to some other place within this piece of music. And so the pit fight is essentially divided into an ambience that plays before we enter the pit, which is just called pre-pit, and then there's pit before combat, which is when you drop into it, it starts a loop of music, but it's not really building anywhere yet because combat hasn't started yet. The combat starts once you actually hit the button to start releasing the pressure on the gas valves, and that's when we transition into this low section. And this is where you can sort of see, if you're being careful and looking, there's a thing here that says too intense, and then in intense over here there's a thing that says too low. This is sort of a thing, this is just an area where pendulums swing back and forth depending on whether an enemy is close to you or you're being suppressed by fire by gunfire, and we can take the music back and forth between these low and high intensity sections. And then there's a whole ending bit here, which is just for the reception. Once we get out into the reception area, and it's just the fight until, you know, the ceiling collapses, fight for your life, and then a release section. So that's basically the sections that we have. And up here is a view of the parameters that control this. Everything that happens in Fmod, I can get more into this later, how this affects sounds as well. Everything that we do is controlled, every behavior that we define in here is controlled by a parameter being controlled by the game. The software that we're using here, it really doesn't know anything about the state of the game. Anything that we want it to know, we have to tell it. Anything about the world, what place the player is in right now, what's the closest enemy, what's the weather like right now. All of that information we have to pass to the software in form of a parameter in code. But I can simulate it up here because it's very nice and very user-friendly. So if I just start, let me just check that this is all correct. I think if I just hit play, it should start working. Yeah, so this is just what we hear at the start. And then while we're in this place, nothing really happens. Because we're not in the pit yet, and then let's get into the pit. As you can see, the music changed a little bit, and the cursor here moved from this place to this place, which means now we're in this area of the music. And we're just going to loop here for as long as we need to. And I can advance this even further. And now we're transitioning over slowly into this area. And now I can automate this parameter over here, which is music. Let's hover over it. I think that's enemy proximity. So if I increase that, let's say there's a zombie that's coming towards us, and we just bring it closer and closer, closer. Then eventually, it's going to transition over to a high intensity version of the music. And now we're being chased, whatever, we're trying to fight him off. Okay, we gain some distance, it brings it back down, and it takes us back to over here. And then we can also just transition. Okay, we're done with the parking now. And now we're transitioning to the next piece. So that's sort of the fundamentals. Oh gosh, it just closed it. I don't know why. I've been ignoring the chat. Oh gosh. So all of this is basically, so this, yeah, that's the basic behavior of this. And then we can go into detail here. Like if we zoom in, you can see that there's a bunch of green lines. That's because if you know music at all, you don't want to just transition at any point in time. You kind of want to do it musically. So this is just letting us know that we've set up a grid, that this only allows us to transition out of this into another place every 1 bar. And then between different sections, there might also be something called a transition region, which I think this one is not. Yeah, this one might be a good example. So within every transition region, we basically define what happens as we go from this part of the music to the other part of the music, and we can play different stingers within that, and we define how it fades between each other. It's all very complex, but the principles of all of it is pretty easy to understand, I hope. I'm not doing a very good job, I bet.
No, you're doing
but
a
so that's the
fantastic
sort
job.
of thing. That's the sort of thing that's happening during the pit combat. And we've taken some of these principles and applied them to point 16 as well. And we're going to go over area 12 as well and bring some more of this craziness to the rest of the game.
So
yeah, this is like really our first time doing this. I'd really love to bring this to other places, yeah.
So
it is what makes a lot of video games so special. Like, because if you just, it's so fun if you're just playing the game and the soundtrack is perfectly matching whatever you, well, maybe not perfectly, but it's matching what you're doing. It really brings you into that moment and supports your emotional journey as you play the game, and that's so key. And fortunately nowadays the technology exists to just let us build this very easily. Like back then, back in the day, let's say, we just like, okay, just have a track that loops, and then maybe, what if we have 2 tracks playing simultaneously and we like blend between them as certain things change? That was unheard of, and then that became the norm. And then it's like, okay, but can we change between entirely different sections of music? Can we do that with a stinger? And it's all this stuff that built up over time into the suite of tools that we have now, that we can really use to any effect we want. It's just all about what parameters do we send from the game to facilitate all of this, and also how do we write the music to accommodate this, which is a huge challenge to anyone who's written music. This is like the next level up. Like, how do we consider every game parameter possible and write a piece of music that can somehow transition from this place to this place to this place and still sound coherent?
So I think you've introduced this tool before, but what is this tool called again? This wonderful 3D music
Right.
programmer?
Yes, I've just sort of jumped into it without even saying it. This is Fmod. I talked a bit about it. I talked a lot about it in the last stream. So if anyone's curious about some of the deeper functionality of Fmod, go back to that stream. Cross promotion. Well, that's not cross promotion. It's promotion for ourselves. But yeah, so this is basically where we assemble the audio for the game. We use Unreal Engine. And Unreal Engine obviously has its own sort of built-in sound tools that you can use. We can just load audio into Unreal and play it from there. But something called like Fmod, which is called an audio middleware, that's because it exists on an extra layer outside of Fmod, outside of Unreal. Oh gosh. This allows us to get very in-depth because this software is specifically built to be able to just allow us to do a lot of things without having to worry about it programmatically. Like in Unreal, if you wanted to switch between different music tracks, you'd have to set that up yourself and do a lot of programming. This gives us a lot of tools to just make that happen visually. And all we have to do then from the code side is just say, start this, and then change this parameter, it will do it for us. So it's extremely powerful, and it's used in practically every like large-scale video game that you've played, I bet. They don't use Fmod necessarily. There's another one called Wise, which is also a big favorite. But both of them accomplish basically the same mission of making implementation of audio and making it adaptive and dynamic to the gameplay be a lot easier than setting it up yourself. We sometimes perhaps take for granted just how complex some of these behaviors would be to build ourselves. So I'm very glad that we have this sort of technology to just let me place a little bar right here, and then it works. I don't have to worry about crossfading it manually in code or anything like that.
In addition to
So it's very
allowing
nice.
us to do these types of things, it allows us to add a lot more expensive effects that otherwise would be way more difficult to set up on our own, and in a lot of different situations as well, like convolution reverb and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's exactly processing of signal as well. Like obviously there's behavior things like this transition stuff between music, or if we have some sort of even sound effects, footsteps, what's the surface? Do we switch what sound effect we're playing depending on if we're taking a step, if we're landing, if we're jumping, things like that. All of that we can do in here, but then also processing the signal. Rather than just playing the sound back raw, we can apply effects to it, like Cole's just said, like reverb, to really fit it into an environment, and we can do all of that dynamically because the game can just send bits of information to Fmod, and then we can say, okay, with that piece of information, change the reverb this way or change it that way. Something that I did on 0.16, for example, was that we had a sound loop that would play. But when music started playing, it would overlap kind of nastily. So something I could do is just say, hey, when this piece of music starts playing, take out this frequency space of this looping sound because the music is more important to come through in the mix than this looping sound. And that's sort of stuff that we can do extremely easily in this sort of software.
Another thing that we can do is like, so if there's like a big heavy pipe leak in the world, right? A designer might make a big heavy pipe leaking noise, but it only really makes sense to be playing that hard when you're directly up next to in front of the leak. So when you're further away, it's a much lesser noise. We can do dynamic things like that, depending on how close or far you are.
I mean, best example of that, I guess I can show it right now, is the grenade. Here's a grenade. We love grenades. And I showed this sort of example last time as well, I think, where, as you can see here, this typically we'd be looking at a timeline, like sort of with music here, we're looking at the sounds displaced in time, whereas here we're looking at the sounds placed on what is called emitter distance, which is a parameter that we can receive from the game, which is just saying this is the distance between where the sound is playing and where the current listener is, and we can change out what sound plays. So as we move away from a grenade, we'll start playing different samples to really make that feel more realistic. So big boom, medium boom, far away boom. You could process that, but that's very expensive. Every effect that we use is obviously CPU time that we're using, and so we kind of want to keep that down. Plus, it might not be the most realistic all the time. So this is something that's also cool. Overall, this software is great. I just love it. I could talk about it for hours.
Well,
I see a lot of talk about metal pipes too.
So what?
A lot of metal pipes. Yeah.
I am curious.
I will implement metal pipe.
What is the difference between like a high cost effect and a low cost effect in terms of like because
Isaac?
Yeah.
Oh, Isaac cut out. Oh no.
Yeah, you cut out, sir.
Oh, can you hear me now?
We can
Yes.
hear you now.
Yeah. I hope my internet holds up with this. But yeah, I was just curious. What is the difference between like a high cost effect and a low cost effect?
Sure. It's all about thinking about essentially how complex of an effect you're trying to achieve. Cool's mentioned a great one just a minute ago called convolution reverb. Convolution reverb is essentially the practice of saying, rather than artificially trying to fake reverb by, I don't know, I don't even know what reverb effects really do under the hood, but they have some sort of arithmetic where they can just blend the sound out and make it sound like it's reverby. Convolution reverb is the actual sampling of reverb from a real world space and then applying that to a sound. So you'd think, I don't know, if you're in your room, if you clap your hands and listen to the reverb of your room, that is basically, that's your reverb tail of your room, and you can record that and then use a convolution reverb effect and run audio through it, and it's going to have that same reverb tail applied to it, essentially. So it sounds like it's in your space. Outside is great, too. I'm just seeing someone say, I'm outside. Outside doesn't have a lot of, verb, but what you might have is if you're close to buildings, you might be getting slapback echoes from those buildings where you just hear your clap come back to you after a little brief moment from the walls that surround you. That's something that's really cool that happens in urban spaces. And convolution reverb can map that very well, but because of we're literally taking like audio and then running it through different audio and trying to treat them the same. I don't even know, again, what exactly happens under the hood. I just get to use the magic, but just because it is a relatively complex thing to calculate, that makes it a high cost effect. So you don't want to be doing a convolution reverb on every single sound that you have individually. Ideally, what you do in those cases, that might be like, yeah, that's a great actually example of a sort of optimization, which is also huge in sound design. What you might think is, okay, I want every sound in the game to have reverb so it fits into the world. What you don't want to do is assign a single reverb effect to every single sound itself, so that the door has its own reverb effect, and the footstep has its own reverb effect, and the gunshot outside has its own reverb effect. Really, what you want to have one place that has a reverb effect where you can send the sound signal from every sound in your game to that one place, so they all get processed by the same thing. So rather than having 15 effects going at the same time and using up CPU, you only have one effect going at the same time and just processing for everything. You get a little less control with that, but there's ways to mitigate it. Either way, convolution reverb, high cost effect. Somewhat of a probably the least cost effective effect is just gain. If you just want to lower the volume, it's a simple multiplication really under the hood if you think about it. If you have a waveform, you just multiply it by a certain number and it becomes quieter or louder by that factor. So that's an extremely low cost. But other things are low cost as well. You can have filters are extremely low costs if you just want to, filters being effects that allow you to reduce certain parts of the spectrum of frequencies. So if you want to have less bass, you can apply either a low cut or high pass filter, depends on what name you want to use. They both mean the same thing essentially. Or if you want to reduce your treble and all of the air that happens up there in those high frequencies, you can use the opposite of that, a low pass filter or a high cut, whatever you want to call it. But those sort of filters are really inexpensive as well. You can use them as much as you want. Really keep an eye out, obviously, on it. That's a huge part of game optimization, well, game audio optimization. Keep an eye on the numbers, and we have tools in the software that allow us to do that. But so that's a basic, example of a low cost and a high cost effect, and that's sort of stuff that you just sort of have to know. I think you can profile it, but also that's just something you learn as you do this. You learn to identify what is a low cost effect, what is a high cost effect, and then you just put that into your process of understanding. Okay, I can do this, I can do that, but maybe I shouldn't do this combination of exact effects right now. And if I need to, maybe I should bake it. That's a whole other thing. We can apply effects in here in this piece of software willy-nilly, but really we should be using them only if we want to achieve a dynamic effect. Like I mentioned, where the music is able to cut out the frequencies on another looping sound. That's something that happens dynamically in gameplay, just whenever there's music, when there's not music. But if we're just tweaking frequencies on a sound, we don't have to be doing that in Fmod. We don't have to have that happen live during gameplay. We can bake that. So for something like that, we could go back and make that tweak in our sound software, whatever DAW we use, Reaper, Window, whatever it is. And then you print that out, and then we call that a baked effect. Anyway, that's a lot of rambling.
What is a baked effect, sound effect for us non-sound technical?
I mean, it literally is like if you have a sound and then you want to bake an effect into it, you just you apply that effect in your actual DAW, where you create the sound and then you render it out that way, and now you have baked that effect into the sound because you can't change it after the fact.
Ah. So it's like literally encoded within the. I guess I just wasn't familiar with the terminology.
Oh, that's okay. It literally changes the waveform that you get out of your thing and put into Fmod. That you've applied it and now it's there and you can't get rid of it. Like if you take a sound of someone snapping their fingers and you apply reverb to it, you render that out. Now that's a sound that has baked reverb in it because you can't take the reverb back out. So different places call it different things. I see encoded come up. You can call it that. Wise calls it render. Wise has a nice feature where you can put effects on a sound in the Wise software, but then because it's not a dynamic one, you can just tell it to render it. So when it actually builds everything down to go into the game, it will render it. It will bake the effect, so to say.
Yeah, you just want to be careful sometimes with baking reverb in these things in, because if you it's good to have reverb baked into the effect sometimes, because things do have their own internal reverb. Like metal things, they will shake and vibrate by themselves outside of the reverb of the room, but you don't want to do too much because then that can interfere with the dynamic reverb that we've got going on in Fmod itself.
So with update 016 coming, I think it's the worst kept secret in the world that we will be going to Antarctica. Which
who told you? Who told this man? Who was it?
Who told you that?
I know. Secrets revealed.
That's classified information. I'm not to report this.
I think I learned it.
Okay, go on.
No, that's all right.
Go on, sorry.
What you call it? I think I learned it from a little bird on YouTube. But so obviously Antarctica provides a lot of unique sound challenges that are different from Area 12. It's the most, radically different environment that people will be in. What challenges did crafting a soundscape for Antarctica provide?
It's so windy. It's the basic.
It's very windy.
It's so windy. I mean, you have to imagine something that came up very early in the Antarctica meetings was we want wind, which yes, absolutely. You just run up very quickly into things where it's like, okay, that's loud though.
If I may,
What else can you hear over it?
If I may, I will say I made like I think like 10 or 12 different wind sound effects just for
Yes.
Antarctica, just like in general, and like there's dynamic stuff going on there. Like I made a lot of wind. I'm just gonna say lots of wind.
Yes, like I think it's actually more than 12. Plus, then Stefan, another great sound designer that we have, came in and made some more. So there's a lot of wind going on. But so that is cool, and I'm just gonna say playing Antarctica now before the update and after the update it's gonna be night and day. I don't think I'm spilling any beans by saying that, and that includes wind, surprisingly, because before in Antarctica the wind was essentially static. It was just a loop that was going on, and maybe sometimes some other sounds were drizzled in. Something that came up very quickly in our remake of Antarctica is that really we want the weather to change over time, and that includes wind intensity and how foggy the scene is. And so something that we have done now, I love how I'm saying this, like it's a huge achievement. The wind will actually respond to how high the wind intensity is within the scene that you're walking in. So at the start of the game, it's, yeah.
There's certain things that the wind can actually interact with and make additional noise.
Oh, I'll get to that.
Things. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get that. So the wind is going to actually pick up as we have like a scale from like 0 to 12. So at 1, it's going to be very calm. And then as it builds up, you're going to get more and more wind layers. You're going to be able to hear less and less, which is part of the challenge. So I look forward to that. But then also, yeah, like Cole's mentioned, something else that we have now really started making use of is the fact that when I talked a bit about parameters and how they can change sound. But of course, parameters don't allow us to just control one single sound at a time. We can actually use something called global parameters, which exist across all sounds to modify the behavior in many, many sounds at the same time. So wind speed, in that case, is one of those global parameters. And let's see, maybe I'm lucky. Maybe I placed it in a good spot. I did. Okay. This is not the best example, but this is definitely an example. Here's a wind. Here's a flag. Just sort of a flag sound waving in the wind. Nothing crazy about it. Before, with our implementation, it would just be this, irregardless of whatever the wind's doing, it'd just be that. But now we can actually have, as you can see up here, there's a wind intensity slider that can move, and that's the global parameter I was just talking about. So as I play the sound again, as wind speed increases, it's actually going to pitch that sound up and make it louder. So just things like that. That seems like an extremely simple thing, but when you're in the moment, it's really awesome because it means we don't have to make multiple sounds or multiple events, as we call them, to say this is a flag with low wind speed, and then when we're over here, there's going to be faster wind, so this one has the faster wind, and then when we're over in this part of the level, it's actually going to be really windy, so we use this sound. We can just have Fmod do it for us. We just say, all of you play the flag sound effect, and then depending on what game information we send about the wind speed, it's going to automatically change the character of that sound. And we can use that not just to change pitch and volume, we can make that do anything we want, really. There's going to be a bunch of things. For example, one of the buildings that we have, because they're huge metal sheets, they're actually going to be rattling in the wind, and that rattling is going to become more obvious and more frequent as wind increases. So it's just things like that, detail work, which is a beautiful combination of just the creative input of saying, okay, we want to tell an emotional story here somehow, and what can we do to make that happen? And simple, hook into the wind. Increase the tension of the scene as we lose probably one of the most important aspects and the most important senses that we have, which is hearing. So we hear less. It's just going to make everything more terrifying. So we can lean into that and say, okay, we're going to add these sounds to the soundscape to make it even more terrifying. And all of that is realized through the wonderful technical tools that we have. And it's very exciting.
Ooh. And so, what forms of digital trickery and wizardry has FMod provided that people will really notice when they go into the newly revamped Antarctica?
Beyond the wind, there's a lot of other cool things that we do that take a lot more into account the player's state and the state of being that you're in. We've updated a bunch of things like aside from Antarctica, but in Antarctica specifically, there's a lot of things I can't even mention. This is what I was saying at the beginning. I'm so annoyed because there's so much fun stuff I could be talking about. I think I can tease. There's going to be dialogue, quite significant amounts of dialogue, and those have been extremely fun to process both in the design stage in my own DAW, but also inside of FMod of tweaking, okay, how do they sound when this, and that? And again, I'm sorry for being so vague about it, but it is going to be extremely noticeable once you're actually playing this. And I'm hoping you get to play it very, very soon. It's not just, okay, play this voice line, and now it's just someone talking. There's a lot going on to settle it into the world, as well as at times take it out of the world and make it almost sort of a weird, half real, half experience. Again, sorry for being vague, but I guess that's kind of all I can say, really, in regards to that.
We do have an interesting question from YouTube from Nocturnal Beats. Was there anything you heard in real life that made you say, I need that in the game, or possible other inspirations?
Ooh, I got to think about that. There's definitely something. I just have to pick one. Cools, do you have an idea?
I mean, plenty of things for me, but they're all like a lot of them are things that I can't really say. Definitely the most obvious one that I can say is something we've already said. Is just like when things are getting windy, the things are rattling around you. Like that
We really
one.
love the wind.
Yeah, again about the wind. Again about the wind. It's just you never really notice it in real life, but then you hear it and you're like, this is such heavy wind that if this entire structure were just rattling and shaking around you, that could really add to the tension. That could really add to the tension. That's, something that I really wanted.
For me, I think it's difficult to pinpoint because I'm constantly inspired by a variety of things that happen around me, because a lot of the job of being a sound designer is also just active listening to the world around you and to things that surround you in your everyday life. And the weirdest thing, and I have no idea how this is going to make it into the game, maybe it will. I was at a conference recently, and we were in this huge sort of warehouse hall, and just someone was up on a stage talking, and there was just sort of ambient sort of like HVAC noises, and then that suddenly died down and it was silent, and that amazed me, just how the absence of that one source of sound, just the HVAC system, completely changed the tone of that space. And then once it came back on, it wasn't just like it's just slowly starting to whoosh again. There was a whole thud that was connected to it that made me go, oh, that sounds so good. And it's just, you just get inspired by small things like that you take with you and that inform the creative decisions that you might make. So at some point you're going to hear something like what I just described, I bet. But that's, yeah. I think that's a good answer. I don't know.
One other thing. I have insomnia. I'm often awake for a really long time. Sometimes there's sounds. Sometimes there's just sounds you hear at like 3 a.m. that you go and you're like, I need to recreate that right now and put that in the ambiance. I need to recreate that right now. That's where a lot of the more spooky things that I threw into Antarctica, like the ambient, came from, actually. Like just spooky things that I heard in 3 a.m.
So would you say, like, what is kind of like a better inspiration to get those sound creative juices flowing? Is it more like listening to movies and television series, or just being out in nature and getting more diegetic sound effects?
For me, it's both.
I mean, they can.
Movies. Oh,
It can really come from anywhere. I was about to say it can really come from
yeah.
anywhere.
It's movies and TV and video games, especially video games, are so great because in the sense that they their whole job is to take you to another world. And so that's really exciting to just sit in that and listen to what these people do. Because it's not just like you're being taken to another world, but you also sort of get to pick the brains of the people who made the sound for that piece of media in the first place. You kind of get to sit there and see what decisions did they make about the sound and how did they shape it in order to give me this emotional story experience. And so it's always fun to listen to that and sort of learn from the masters a little bit. And even from the non-masters, there's so much fun stuff that you can find in independent media where people just get really creative and you can just look at that and be like, wow, that is something I would have never thought to do. And you just carry that with you. And then at the same time, just being outside it doesn't even need to be outside, just different spaces. If you're outside, if you're in a certain place in a city, if you're driving around, there's so much to pay attention to and so much within this world that fills the sonic space. There's always something to listen out for. And always something, I constantly have moments of noticing something that I had not noticed before. Like the car that I drive, I'd never noticed the exact engine whine that happens when the hybrid system like assists in acceleration. I'd never noticed it, and recently I noticed it for the first time. And I was like, that's such a cool little thing that I didn't hear before, and now I hear it, and now it's just so fun to have that in my brain and potentially use that as inspiration for something. I don't even know what. So yeah, just draw from a lot of different places. That's for me.
For me, it's a lot of what Evelyn said about that. I also have a duffel bag filled with all of my recording equipment that I carry around in the car whenever I go anywhere. So you hear something, you're like, oh, I gotta get the bag. Like this one time, I was recording sound effects for the vending machine, and so like I go up to this vending machine place, and it was very conveniently the moment that the who was it? The maintenance worker was like changing out the drinks, like they were putting in the drinks back into the machine, refilling it. And so like he wasn't there when I walked up, but like I started pulling out all of my recording equipment, and like he's just apparently was standing behind me this whole time while I'm assembling this because it's all disassembled, and he's just like, "What are you doing?" Like, I'm a sound designer. I wanted to record some vending machine noises. And he's like, he was like really cool about it, and he actually let me record him refilling the machine. I didn't actually have to spend any money to get the recordings of everything.
So wonderfully wholesome. I love it.
Very wholesome.
John Henry Chow
Wholesome vending machine story.
had a question. What was the most challenging sound effect to create for SCP-5K, and how did you solve it?
Ooh, that's fun because every update it gets more difficult, seemingly. At least in recent experience, every single update has been another thing on top where it's like, okay, how can we stack this higher? And there's always something that comes down. I'll call it from the top that makes us consider, okay, how are we going to go about that? And so I think that might actually be a great lead over. I'll just tell a small story and then I can actually lead over to Cools if you're feeling up for that, Cools.
Sorry, what?
I'm gonna lead to you. I'm gonna talk a little bit and then I'm gonna lead over to you because I think you have a great answer to this, and I'd love for you to be able to show this off. But yeah, so something obviously Antarctica. I don't think it's a mystery that there's an SCP in that area that is obviously hugely important to this update. So very early on, when we said, okay, Antarctica is going to happen, quickly meetings started about what do we want these things to be? And that includes, obviously, how do we want them to sound? And so we have a great chain of command, I will say, where Trey, our game director, comes up with so many brilliant ideas, and really he has such a brilliant mind, and he says he is unable to articulate a lot of the sound ideas that he has because he's not a sound person, but what is awesome is that he can just articulate sort of in analogies and in terms of what he wants it to fulfill in terms of telling a story, what he's looking for, that can then be translated and then worked on by the sound department. So for this creature, something that came up very quickly was a beautiful descriptor that I loved the moment I heard it. That was the bagpipes from hell. That's something that Trey used to describe the sound he was looking forward for this. Because in his mind, he was like, well, think about it. We have a lot of people and a lot of creatures that get amalgamed into one. And now this thing is not supposed to have any sort of intelligence of making all of these people's voices articulate like an intentional vocal sound of being like, I don't know, like a zombie yells angrily when it's angry, or it's kind of making a disappointed sound when it's disappointed. It's not doing that. It's really just a big organ, think like a pipe organ or bagpipes, where it's just a bunch of individual pipes that you blow air through. And the way you blow air through it, the exact way you do that, what force, what speed, that dictates the noise that comes out of it. But rather than individual pipes, like on a church organ or on a bagpipe, it's human and animalistic voices. And that's how he pictured it. That's where the term bagpipes from hell comes from, because you're supposed to have this creature that's not intentionally vocalizing, I'm mad, but by the way in which it moves and by the way gases expand in its body and release, it creates these vibrations in all of these individual voices and creates this horrifying bagpipe effect. And I loved that so much. I was so happy. And Cools is the very, very fortunate soul that got to design these sounds. And I bet you can take us through some of the things that happened in terms of like recording voices and then what you did with them. So I give it to Cools, and enjoy and genuinely enjoy this demonstration of what he's been doing.
All right,
I know I will.
Thank you, Corvus. So as I said, the main thing going into 610's vocals is primarily, my main concern was illustrating it's not, the voices aren't out to get you. They don't want to kill you. They don't want to hurt you necessarily. These aren't cries of aggression necessarily. It is the body that wants to kill you. The voices are mainly reacting to stimuli from the body's excessive or non-excessive movements. The body moves, the voices react because of the gases and everything, and that is how these need to sound. But they also need to portray particular actions, because when you can't see anything at times, if it's like really dark, you still need to be able to tell what's going on. Is he dead? Is he attacking? Is this an idol? Like, what's going on? You need to know these things still. So I hope that I managed to create a good blend of telling you what it's doing without making it sound like it has too much intent. So with further ado, let's give a listen. Are the alerts.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yes. Now this is 40, almost 40 layers of people we got, like, all over the place. I got some of my friends here. I've got Corvus, I've got Trey, I've got Piper, Aaron, lots and lots of me. I had, as the person doing this, I was, anytime there needed to be some pickup or something, yeah, but lots and lots of people stepped in, and I thank all of them immensely for allowing me to add them to this terrible eldritch creature. Let's start soloing some of these out. So, most importantly, we have the top layer, which I use my own voice so I can have the most control over re-records to get the right effect. I can't constantly be asking people to re-record their stuff when they're so busy. Now, as you see, this sounds very much like a death whistle. I wanted to use that kind of like effect where it's like not a lot of human voice in here because again, there's not too much intent here or human, that said, to speak to you. It's just air. A lot of it is just air. So I taught myself how to emulate a death whistle, and God, that hurt my throat a lot. But I think it really paid off because now we have things like this really insane top layer.
I recalled the message Coleswood sent to me, just like, I'm still recovering from my throat being... I'm just like, don't hurt yourself, but also good work.
So now down here we've got Trey. He did some really good. He's like insanely good at like portraying like the little like moans of suffering, just the suffering here. And then we got Piper for the lower end here. Aaron. Sped him up a little, quite a bit. And we've got an actual death whistle here, and then there's my friend.
What is a death whistle? I'm a little bit that's a term I've not heard.
This is a fun one. Okay, so as I understand it, in Aztec culture, there was an instrument. It's basically a whistle, but the reason they call it a death whistle is it made a sound akin to a human scream. And the Aztecs, as I understand it, I'm not an expert, so if I get this wrong, I'm sorry. As I understand, they use it in rituals and to declare an attack. So if the Aztecs were about to attack something, they would play death whistles as a signal of their attack, and they would also use it in rituals and stuff.
Ooh. I had no idea. I thought that was like an audio designer term, but I didn't know that there was like so much history to the Aztec death whistle.
Tried a lot of different ways of playing it to add it as much places as I can. But yeah, that is an Aztec death whistle. And then down here we have a bit of animal, not a ton because not a ton because I wanted to focus on the more human aspect, but there are animals in here. We've got Tasmanian devil and a gator because that gives me a lot of bass, actually, really nice bass in the gator. Although I don't know why there would be a gator in Antarctica. That's a very good question.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. But yeah, so the real difficulty with 610 is creating it needs to portray the action that's happening without necessarily the intent of it wanting to harm you or being dangerous. It just needs to be this horrible amalgamation of voices that gives you the chills. And I think I did a pretty good job so far with that. Now we move on to the attacks here. And with the attacks, it's very similar to the alerts, but a lot shorter. I don't think that's actually an attack. Whoops. Yeah, lots and lots and lots of layers. Like This alone took me like multiple months. Like all of these voices, like for all these, it took me multiple months to get all of these right. The amount of iteration I had to do, trying to figure out all the right effects and stuff. Speaking of the effects, I haven't actually gone over that, crud. For the most part, I tried to keep it relatively minor with the effects. We've got some extra reverb here. We got some clipping prevention, some EQing here. The real meat comes from some of the later ones that I haven't shown yet. But for the most part, I'm EQing in relation to their voices and a lot of voices in general with envelopes and stuff to try and, because they need to be separate. They all need to be separate. It needs to be clear that there's a lot of voices here, but also they can't be all over the place either, because then that just becomes a big cluster. Then you can't tell what's going on anymore. Especially if there are like 5 or 6 of these guys in like one small area, it would just be really horrible on your ears. Here's some idols. There's a lot of really it's just really just a lot of people making some really eerie sounds is what it boils down to.
Do you have like raw footage of all the Fray members? It is very fitting that like the flesh that hates is like the sound of all of the members of a Fray doing their best, horrible monster voice.
And my friend. Here is.
We're all your friend. What are you talking about?
You know, that's very true. That's very true. My one friend who's not in a Fray. I'll say it like that. Here's one that is really, I like, shows off just how far, because like I did this a lot later, and I really like nailed down at this point the death whistle. Like I'm really proud of how I did this one. Just. And not a lot of actual effects chains going on here. It's just a little bit of EQ, transient saper, compression, and what I wanted to portray here is like a lot more of just that wind factor here is these are the idols of this, and it's just a lot more like just wind. Oh, and there's my air mattress, by the way. Are there any questions regarding how I any questions regarding this?
Do have a few questions coming in from YouTube. John Henry asks if you could add any new SCP to the game purely from a sound design perspective, what would it be and why?
I will admit I don't read a ton of SCP articles and retain them anymore, because like my old man brain, like I like to sometimes like at 2 a.m. like binge read a bunch of articles, but then I kind of forget about a lot of them. Like recently there was one about I don't remember the numbers is the thing. Like there was one about a painting, and like there's digging, and you'd go to sleep near the painting or something and you'd be stuck in there. That's not really an answer to the question, but
well, I think
dang, I really need to remember the numbers more. I mean, to appease the people, let's just say Banana Man, the Banana Monster.
There you go, the demonic banana. Corvus, I know you have a long history with the SCP community. Is there any SCP you wish you could design sounds for?
It's a really tough question because I've had the opportunity to design sounds for, but I think the biggest one, this is weird, the biggest one I think I would want to get a second shot at, if I guess I think that might be the two ones. I mean, call this lame, this might be lame, but I really want a second shot at 106. Because I feel like I could do a lot better nowadays. And also 939. Because I thought the human voices aspect was interesting.
Oh yeah.
And I just never got around to doing that, and I'm so annoyed. No, but like those ones, those ones are the ones where I'm just thinking those are the ones I think would be the most fun for me to just be able to take another crack at. I personally, it's 173. I just love 173. So if you asked me to design new 173 sounds right now for any reason, not even for 5K, just for why not? Yeah, I'd do it. I love 173 so much. But yeah, I've already answered with 3 SCPs, so there you go.
Yeah, there were like I'm really hoping that we can do more stuff with 173 and like because like a lot of his sound effects are pretty old. Like pretty recently, I added some new sound effects for 173, and I think they sound a lot like they sound way better than what I was able to do in 2018.
Oh yeah,
I was baby. 2018.
that was in 0.15. So
Yeah, that was
if
0.15.
you've played version 15, those are the new sounds that Coles is mentioning, which we took a big advantage of with Fmod again, because before what was happening is sort of there was a scrape sound that played once, and then it didn't loop or anything, and it just played every so often or very frequently, and it would just sort of be spammed. But in 0.15, that was like, okay, Coles, let's make loops. And Coles went all out, made a bunch of different layers for the loops, so as it gets closer to you, it's actually going to make more noise. It's going to sound more terrifying as it gets closer.
Yeah,
so
the way
that
it
stuff,
transitions,
yeah.
The way it transitions is there's a distant concrete layer when it's really far, and then there's a second layer, and then when it gets right up close to you, you can finally start to hear the metal just grinding and scraping against the floor right next to you, and it's really quite terrifying, I would like to think.
Tacit asks, as a sound designer, what's the weirdest thing you've ever had to record on your own for your own custom sound?
Let me think here. The weirdest thing.
The weirdest thing is an interesting one, yeah.
Let me think.
I'm not sure if this is weird. I took a metal rod and rubbed it against a metal lamp from IKEA, and it produced a beautiful sound. But I'm just why who would think to do that? I guess. So I'm not sure if that's weird, but it's certainly interesting.
Well, we did have a slightly inappropriate addendum to that, where Dave asks to the Discord, did you ever slap your significant other's wet butt for a sound effect? The sound designer for Black Mesa did. XD.
I will say I didn't do that to another person, but I have slapped myself in the face for a sound effect. I have done that.
I think I've done the same thing. I don't think I've slapped someone else for it. I love that this question is coming up one day before Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day,
Happy
everyone.
Valentine's
Go
Day,
slap your
everybody.
significant other for sound effects. Do it.
Please don't do that. Please don't.
Or if you do like it.
Hashtag slap for sound. God.
We do also have another interesting question, where from Dinko on YouTube asks a question. While you guys were creating sounds for an area like the introduction of the Chicken Man, did you guys play the area to first imagine what sounds would be better?
Yeah, the Chicken Man was interesting because it kind of came late, so it was definitely an accelerated process. But so much inspiration can be drawn from just looking at the area and seeing, what does this look like? What do I feel when I look at this? Okay, and then now our job becomes, I want to translate that feeling that I have in my head to your ears, so you feel the same thing, I hope. Or, well, we hope. So it very quickly, like Cools, you made a bunch of really cool sort of distant sound effects for the ambient soundscape in there.
Yeah, like Like when we had that area, when we had that area in development, I was running around there a lot while I was like messing around in Reaper, just going back and forth. Okay, like what would be going on in here? And I didn't I there's definitely a lot more I would have loved to add, that maybe we can add in a future update. Um what was it that I really wanted to add? Oh yeah, I wanted to make it to where these sounds, like as you got deeper in to like the amount of background sounds going on in the soundscape increased the deeper you got into the nest, instead of just staying the same the whole time. But that we weren't able to do that at the time, unfortunately.
I recall something I really wanted to do, that was suggested, is that in that area, the containers that are present are actually, I mean, the 3199, they actually come out of some of those containers. And so the idea was to have sort of sounds of them sort of being inside the container. So if you got close to it, you would actually be able to hear them on the other side of the metal wall. And an idea that I had at the time, which I would love to do still at some point, but it's a little bit more of an advanced thing. Well, not terribly advanced, but still something that takes a bit of time to do. Is when you're next to it and you fire a gun or you make some sort of loud noise, that the creatures inside the containers would actually start freaking out, and you just the whole sort of place around you would just get loud for a little bit as they like freak out inside the containers, and then it would slowly die down again. That's still something I want to get back to in the future. Really hope that I can make that happen, because it's just would be great.
There was also like a really long, loud elevator screeching noise when you press the button. Uh, because I thought it would be really funny if like you press the button and then there was this really large just screeching noise, and then you're all just looking around. You're like, okay, everybody heard that. Like, where are the enemies? Where are the enemies? And the elevator would just come all the way down, and they're like, oh well, there's nothing happened. And then they'd all come out, and it would be like, oh, there they are.
We also have a question from DCR who wanted to know for Cools, when is the follow up for the SCP-2761 audio design stream? Hashtag justice for 2761,
Oh no.
aka
Oh no.
Bananazilla.
Oh no, Cools.
Oh
Oh
no.
no.
uh I've been quite busy as of late with a lot of with a lot of Antarctica things, like like hopefully like maybe there'll be more time soon, but we'll have to see. We'll have to talk about that more, Isaac. We will have to talk more about that at a later time. But hopefully soon.
Maybe when the Antarctica is out there in the wilds, we'll figure out a time for the justice for to continue to make a monstrous theme, a calypso bagpipe of horrors for the. Because I remember you were jiving, but you almost had it, but then you kind of like reached a creative plateau. But maybe,
Yeah, by that stream we were like mostly done with 0.15, so like I kind of needed a bit of a break there at that point. So I'm sorry I wasn't able to do as much as I would like.
no, that's all right. The legacy of what you call Bananazilla is something that I love the enthusiasm from the community, and I love to make sure that we fulfill that legacy. So we will see. We will discuss it. Keep on asking for it. We'll see if we can figure out a time once after 0.16 is out in the wilds. But since we are here and we are in this wonderful section, like I cannot believe we got to hear the sound effects for 0.16. This is probably the biggest leak you are going to get. What questions do you have about the fleshy, throaty sound effects that are involved in SCP 016? Let's get into it since we have this whole selection of the bagpipes from hell.
A 610, sir?
610 and update 016. The numbers do.
I do have some additional vocals here to show off, but as you're done.
Yeah, play them. But yeah, on YouTube and Discord, I would love to get some questions focused on the 610 audio and sound design. So let's hear them, and I hope to see your questions in the chat. I am scanning them.
Some more heavily processed stuff.
Asset asks, what was the most challenging aspect when designing 610's audio?
Definitely, like I said, because it was a lot of back and forth with the game director and the and some of my other coworkers about exactly when I'm capturing the exact feeling of, because like there was lots of times where it's leaning a little bit too much towards this, the vocals have intent behind them. So a lot of the challenge was like getting to the point where like I had nailed the, okay, there's intent here, or there's not intent here, but it still sounds like the thing. It still sounds scary. And once I was able to capture that, it was a lot easier to go roll with the rest of them. So like one of these, I started, I believe, with the alert here. This is the one that I started with, and I was working on this for like I think an entire month. These alerts in particular. And once I had this nailed down, I was able to start going into the attacks. Able to start going into the attacks, and then from there we go to the idols, and then once that's done, we're able to go into some of the other ones, like this in the very, very hopefully like this very spooky individual here. I cannot really talk too much about, unfortunately, because spoilers. Yeah. This one leans a lot more into the effects than the very first one I worked on. There's dehuman, there's a lot more going on, a lot more animals actually too, lots more animals. In fact, I think the animals are like way more like a lot more than the people at this point. But
MK11 asks, how pretty is 610 looking so far?
oh, oh my god, like I love
I have
him.
never seen anything more pretty.
Okay, I thought you were going to say you never seen 610. I'm gonna be able to see like, oh my god, like
No.
boot it up right now.
Dude,
Like, you need to see this.
that would have been worrisome, I think.
That would have been very worrisome indeed. Like
610 smash or pass. Okay.
Okay,
That was deleted very quickly.
okay, maybe not as fast for pass, I think. But yeah, 610, very, very kawaii.
Yeah, you'll be great in the dating sim. Tacit asks, you might have answered this already, but what made you think of Aztec death whistles when brainstorming 610's audio vibe?
So primarily, because of the way that Trey was talking about it, like about bagpipes from hell, and I know that this creature, it's an amalgamation of like several to possibly like 20 or something people. I really like Aztec death whistles. I've been using that for a lot of the monsters, not like as a little backdrop. So I knew about them already, and I'm like, okay, this is the time to really go for this type of thing because it sounds vaguely like a human, but it's not. And then I started trying to use the death whistles, and I'm like, well, no, this just sounds too much like a whistle. So that was the point where I started trying to teach myself how to do this type of noise so I can, like, I had to teach myself to be a death whistle so I could insert just a little bit more human on that death whistle. If that makes it, like, that's the kind of process. Like, I tried to use a death whistle, it wasn't enough. I wanted to make it more human, but only just. If I go over here, I can extend this out a bit, perhaps. I was doing this for like, I will preface this. I was doing this for 40 minutes and my voice was basically dead after this. Worth it though. I can do a little bit here. That kind of noise.
John Henry Chow Henry asks, have you experimented with binaural or directional audio effects for SCP-610?
For 610 specifically, no. Aside from a couple of ambience things, I believe. But as a creature, no. I have experimented. I have done a lot of that for just a lot of the ambience around 5K in general, though. But
Yeah,
for
there's
creature, that's an
a
interesting
bunch
idea.
of well, yeah, binaural audio is interesting because it is sort of some people will say it's the future. It's what gives VR games their sort of nice spatial flair. It is something that we're definitely looking at. Something that has happened, like Cole says, is that it's been used on a bunch of ambience. There's a bunch of sounds I designed for this update as well that I think I used it specifically because it was going to be a stereo sound to sort of place things around you and make you feel a bit more immersed in it. But as of right now, we don't have a system inside of the game itself that takes whatever audio we make and binauralizes it to really accurately really accurately spatialize it around you. But it is something we're investigating, and it might be something that we add as a possible option in the future. It's definitely been on our minds for a long time. But for now, it lives in the realm of when we design a sound, we use it, and then maybe one day.
What is binaural audio for layman people like me?
Oh, sure. Binaural audio is essentially we try to model audio rather than because a speaker is whatever audio signal you have and you play back on a speaker is a pretty much perfect representation of how it hit the microphone. But really what you don't want to hear is how the signal hit the microphone. You're more curious about, okay, how would this sound if it hit my ears? If there was a sound in space in front of me, how would it come into my ear? And so binaural audio seeks to model that by using various pieces of technology. The biggest thing that they use is something called an HRTF, which is specifically a model. It's not like, if I say model, I don't mean like a 3D model. I just mean like a sort of theoretical representation. Something that models the shape of a human ear and a human head. And you can use HRTFs to process audio in a way that it then, rather than just saying, because the most primitive way of doing it is just saying, okay, we have a stereo field, we have two channels, and we want the sound feeling like it's coming from our left, then we just make it full volume on the left channel and just make it zero volume on the right channel. That's the most primitive approach and the one that's most commonly used in a lot of games. So it just, the sound's to your left, just do that. But binaural audio takes the information about where the sound is and then runs it through this model, and then the sound that comes out of that sounds a lot more realistic because it's actually taking into account the fact that the sound can bend around your head and you're hearing a little bit of it on your right ear, even though it's all the way to your left. And so it just becomes a lot more immersive and also a lot more accurate because you can now pinpoint not just generally where around you it is, it's also encoding height information. And you can get very specific because the sound shifts more noticeably, the quality of the sound shifts more noticeably as it moves in 3D space around you.
So is it something like a lot of games are using nowadays, or is it just mainly 3D or VR games?
VR games definitely use it. I think 3D games are using it more and more. Some 3D games go for a combination of both, and some games actually exist as well where they don't necessarily have that sort of spatialization by itself, but their setup in the audio engine is so that you can use something like Windows Sonic for headphones or Dolby Atmos for headphones you can turn that on your computer, and now it's actually going to be able to read out all of that information and binauralize the sound for you using either Windows Sonic or Dolby Atmos, or I think DTS has their own system as well. So there's various different approaches to it. It just depends on what the game or the company that made the game, what they feel the game needs.
And Ghost 61, this may not be your area of expertise. How tanky is 610? How many bullets, or is that all the bullets?
Enough bullets, I think. What do you think, Coles?
Hmm.
I don't want to give up the game. You guys still play it. If I just
I don't
tell
know.
you
I don't know.
everything
I don't
about
know
it.
if I want to tell you because let's just say you want to use as few the lowest amount possible.
So
You really want to use the lowest amount possible.
Oh, maybe there's some unique gameplay section that implies that you may not necessarily want to mess around with. You want to conserve your ammo. I guess you'll just have to wait until it debuts. Okay.
Important question just been posed to us.
Very important question from Dave. Actually, this is an incredibly important question for Evelyn and Cools. Do I make pasta?
What kind of pasta?
What kind of pasta?
Pasta?
Exactly, the pasta.
I mean, anyone can make pasta. You just have to boil water. It's like one of the easiest things. I think.
Right. But what pasta though? I mean, like, are we talking lasagna? Like, I mean, this is very important. Okay, you can't. Like, this is very important.
I love the first response to it. Just order pizza, dude. I second that. Just order pizza. But if you can't order pizza, then yeah, make pasta.
Listen. Like, as a home cook, I will have to say, please, like, if you have to order pizza, but if you do want to make pasta, please, like, the world needs more home cooks, please.
I'm all broke too. Oh. I mean, that seems nice.
You can also get pasta from Domino's now.
Yeah, go to Olive Garden. This is. Oh yeah,
I'll do you one better. I'll do you one better. Make enchiladas. That's pretty easy. Make enchiladas.
I'm not okay. Well, I shouldn't bring up brand names. I'm so sorry.
Don't worry, I don't think they'll be coming. They're demanding a cut of equity for mentioning it. Although it would be nice to get paid for that plug. Although that does bring up a hypothetical question. Let's say for whatever reason, the next update 017 has a really important pasta scene or a pasta-based SCP. How would you go about getting the sound effects and designing the sound effects for either characters eating pasta for an immersive pasta simulation scene or a hypothetical pasta SCP?
Well, actually,
okay, cool. I guess we're gonna record pasta.
Well, actually, this isn't answering the question, but since everyone's mentioning recording pasta, I will say I actually made a bunch of pasta to record for 610s, like all the little fleshy noises he makes. Like, what I did is I got watermelon and I made some disgusting like just stew of this gore and guts of like watermelon, just like so much crud. It smelled horrible, and then I tossed in a bunch of the spaghetti noodles in there, and I just started throwing that all around the bowl, and that is like the noise that 610 makes, is very angry, disgusting pasta.
They're an angry noodle.
The angriest noodle. Oh, the classic Will Smith eating pasta. Amazing how far terrifying.
Maybe don't eat that pasta though. Maybe don't.
So, was there potential? That is another interesting question. Has there been some Foley effects you guys have done for 610, or is it just maybe bagpipes from hell?
Let me think. Do you have anything?
I mean, perhaps. I mean, there's so much of it. There is so much, and the thing is, because it's 610 and all of its derivatives, whatever that may mean. I guess you'll find out when the update drops.
And the environment, because 610,
Oh yeah,
it's covering. But like 610 is definitely, I want to say, one of the most complex, like, just enemies that we've made so far. Just in terms of like the vocals, because the vocals are one thing, but the noises it makes when it's traversing the environment, like like as an enemy, are also like there's just lots, and it's very complex because it's just very complex. Can I talk about like the death noises?
Sure.
So for the
Humor
death
me.
noises, I didn't want to do vocals for that necessarily because already the vocals are pretty stacked, and I definitely wanted to make sure because sometimes it's really dark, sometimes you can't really see. It has to be extremely clear when this thing is dead, or is it dead? When this thing is down, it has to be very clear. So instead of making it a vocal sound, I made it kind of like a like wind type of noise. I got a wet balloon, and I got my air mattress out. And when it dies, there's a lot of air. I'll just say that. Or is it dead?
Yeah, we don't know. It may not be able to be killed. But the wet balloon is very. So Wolf Gaming had a really interesting question that I think you guys will eat up. How do you handle real-time audio propagation in SCP-5K's environments? Does the game use ray tracing for sound reflections and obstructions, or is it more baked reverb system? Also, need Bananazilla and update 016.
Not sure about Bananazilla in the update, but I can probably talk about the rest of the stuff. Sound propagation right now it's obviously there's a lot of games that use something called a room system, rooms and portals, where we can actually specifically find out where in the world a sound is and then what openings it can propagate through to get to you. We don't have that currently. I will say I'm not sure if it's going to happen specifically, but there's a lot of efforts that are being made towards improving things. So right now, a sound exists in the world, and the way we figure out if it's behind a wall or if it's obstructed by anything is we pretty much use ray tracing to just draw a line from its source to the listener. At least that's how we used to do it. That's how point 15 did it. In point 16, there's actually been a bunch of updates to that. We're trying to rework the occlusion system to become a lot more flexible and also more realistic, because something that did happen all the time is that you'd hear a sound of someone shooting at you very clearly, and you'd step behind a small pillar and it would just go muffled completely. And we really wanted to rework that and get rid of that sort of thing. So there's a bunch of things that we have changed. I can tease sort of now. Occlusion system rework in point 16. It's not perfect still. Keep in mind, this is just iteration. It's going to get better over time. But so something that we actually do now is rather than just draw one line, we actually draw multiple different lines. And we figure out from what sort of collisions those lines go through, how much we should occlude the signal. So that's something that's been updated new, meaning like thin wooden walls are going to make the sound not go completely muffled like a thick concrete wall would. Things like that. And for the reverb, we have a system that allows us to basically, right now it's player centric, I'll call it. We'll figure out where is the player in the world. And based on that, we apply a reverb effect to the sound effects that fits them into the space that we're currently in. That is also something that I'm hoping to tackle very soon because it's still a relatively simple system. There's a bunch of things that we can do to improve that. So no promises yet on time frame or anything like that. Just know that I'm thinking about changing that and improving it a bunch to make it hopefully more realistic and also more dynamic. The same thing will apply to, I mean, it sounds like a small insignificant change, but it's hopefully going to carry a lot of things to make everything a bit more realistic, like just the whole feeling of the place, footstep, Foley, hopefully it's going to feel more settled in, and firearms might also get some updates, but that's just me making some quote-unquote empty promises right now. That's just research for the moment, but I guess stay tuned for that, because that's going to get updated over time as we go along.
Think of these sessions as like episodes in a TV show. We had Corvus episode 1.
There you go.
And then this is episode 2, and then episode 3. Will the development be made? Will the research be done? Will it be an update 016? Find out in a couple of months from now. Wolf Gaming asks a very interesting question. How would you handle real-time audio propagation in SCP-5K's environments? Oh, no, I already asked that one.
That's the
one.
question you just. Yeah, that's the one you just
question
asked.
you just asked.
I'll just repeat that. Yeah, hang on.
Yeah, I'll just repeat it again.
The one I meant.
I mean, there is another one for Wolf Gaming.
There
We
was
gotta make this live
anyway.
stream longer than 10 minutes, guys.
there was one up above him that I meant to ask. So from DCR, question for you: how would you go about making audio for something like 3612, being that exists in every dimension at once and is also schizophrenic?
I don't think I really could answer that right now. I'm not sure if Coles could either. I mean, you can give a different opinion
sure
on that.
either,
I'd have to start by reading the SCP first and foremost, is understanding what the question is,
Yeah, that's the
and
very
what the
first step
SCP
to
actually is.
You gotta read the SCP article, even if you've already read it before. Just read it again, get all the fine details, because
Mhm.
you want to be as accurate to the source material as possible.
That
I
is
definitely ask my writers a lot of stupid questions sometimes. Just how much does SCP-098 weigh? And I very much annoy them.
Oh, gosh.
just to get extra details like that. Dinko,
I want to be close.
Dinko on YouTube asks, if you guys had to implement something like 610 transforming the player body, how would you do that? So, or maybe there is body transformation, but I guess, like, have you ever played Scorn where your, like, body, you get, like, parasites attached to your body? I guess if 610 did something, like, similar to that, how would you go about designing those kind of sound effects that come from the player's body itself?
Right off the bat, I would say there would be a lot of layers, right? So I would separate a lot of that out. Like I wouldn't bake all of it in, and Corvus Evelyn would definitely do a lot with that mod to transform between the layers. But in a nutshell, I would separate a lot of that out into separate little things, and we would try to blend a lot of that together in post.
Yeah, there's it's sort of transformation is interesting because it's sort of an interplay of the thing that my mind immediately goes to. First of all, okay, how does that sound to you? How does that affect how you hear the world even? And yeah, so there's a bunch of things. Obviously, the most simple things like, okay, we attach a sound to the player, and then now that's making the noise. But obviously, we can do a lot more interesting things than that because we can play with this, just with the sonic field around you, and really have everything be. If you're playing on a surround setup, or if you're using something like Windows Sonic, we can place things around you to really make you feel in it. And it's a definitely shared effort between implementation on the game side and then also the more creative work, I will say. I mean, it's all creative ultimately, but the technical side and the design side of designing sounds that really make you feel like you're the one who's currently being changed.
Exactly. There's also a lot of
It's a fun
VFX
task.
that will go presumably into this.
Oh, yeah.
So you will definitely want to wait until we have at least a good grasp of what that VFX will be. Preferably when it's done, and then go off that as well.
So it's definitely like a very challenging thing to kind of create. Good. Maybe your body transforms, maybe it doesn't. You'll have to find out when the 016 update comes. Wolf Gaming has another technical question. How is the Doppler effect handled in SCP-5K? Do you apply frequency shifts dynamically based on relative movement, or velocity-based sound distortions pre-mixed?
Depends on the sound. F1 has a very nice sort of pre-made solution where all I have to do is just say use Doppler effect, and I can actually say to it how much the intensity of that should be. Obviously, I could also set it up myself custom. So there's a couple of things like projectiles actually in 0.16 that use the Doppler effect, where all I need to do is just say use the Doppler effect, and then based on the position and speed information that the game sends to Fmod, it can figure out by itself how much to pitch up, how much to attenuate the sound itself. For other sounds, things that pass by you that really are not physical in the world, that just sort of play as effects, that's something where it's like design will take a lot of time. Well, not a lot of time necessarily, but they will take the effort of putting that in and making it really sound like it's passing by you. It's always a choice between just, okay, is this something that's happening dynamically right now because it's just attached to something in the game world, and we have to simulate it dynamically because if we bake it in, it's not going to match it's not going to match picture, I guess. It's not going to match the actual action. Versus, okay, this is a one-shot sound with something that might be simulated, like the path of a bullet. In that case, it would be pre-baked, so to say. It'd be done when the sound is designed itself.
Well, definitely well said. Is there like a fantasy? If you could had unlimited resources, is there some sort of what sound technology would you like to apply if you had infinite money to throw at update 016? Is there any fantasy tech you wish you could use?
If I had infinite money, I would absolutely get like as many people as humanly possible recorded for this because like I really, really want like mind you, like I didn't like I would love like another 20 people to throw in this abomination. I'm just gonna say that right now.
How many people could you could throw in before while still keeping it listenable?
I don't know, but I want to find out.
There you go. I think infinite money is interesting. I would love to. No, I'm not sure I should say that. I don't think I should say that. I'm not going to say that. I'll think about something else. I'd love to. What?
No, nothing. Nothing going.
I can tell. I'll just message you. I was thinking, but I'm not going to say it. If I think this is weird. Recording live musicians would be awesome. And point 16 is actually interesting because a lot of the music that we write for the game is written with sampler software or synths, which simulate or playback sort of modified to our recording, well, whatever we play. We can make orchestras play whatever we want, but it's obviously not a real orchestra playing it, technically speaking. So it would be awesome to get live musicians. And in point 16, actually, there is a first step in that direction. In one of the tracks, we had live guitar being contributed by someone in the team, and I really love that. It's like, oh, finally a live musician on this. So that's very exciting, and hopefully maybe in the future we can do more. And I mean, yeah, it's sort of a pie in the sky sort of dream almost, but I mean, who wouldn't want to record live orchestra for a game that they're working on, and perhaps even with a cue that they compose themselves? I mean, it's just cool.
The John Williams Orchestra at your grasp. Is there any game with the orchestral soundtrack that you think is kind of like really knocking it out of the park? Is it always the Final Fantasy games, or possibly maybe the Call of Duties?
Ooh, Cools, do you have a favorite? I got to think about that for a sec.
I don't know if there's such thing as a favorite because like when you've got live orchestra like that, like you've got like a lot more flexibility on terms of like because like you can portray human emotion through MIDI, yes, but you're never gonna quite grasp that exact thing as you can through like a live instrument recording. So if you've got like a giant orchestra that you're playing live, like hats off to you already, bro. Hats off to you.
I think I'll just drop a few names. I think I dropped this one recently, the last stream as well. Abzu, Austin Wintory, Halo, any of the Mario O'Donnell scores, even Halo Infinite, I think, is pretty cool. Those are the two big ones that really, really honestly, anything Austin Wintory does, really good stuff. So those, I think, are my two big call outs because they're just so good.
Diggo says, Frey, hire Hans Zimmer, I beg you. I'm sure he's very available.
I think he's a bit above our pay grade, yeah.
I'm sure Hans Zimmer is lining up to work with us, definitely.
It would be amazing. But John Henry Chow asks, is sound design for the firearms, is it common or practical to create multiple variations of a weapon's firing sound?
We do actually have multiple variations of it. It aids in just because you can argue like, oh well, a gun is just a big pop. Why would you have multiple variations of it? But if you think about it, beyond just the pop that it makes, the way it responds to the environment is really what shapes the gun sound. And that's going to be different just because of the fact, I mean, acoustics. The air is constantly moving around you, objects are constantly moving around you. The way you shoot a gun in one moment is going to be different from another. So it makes, at least in our philosophy, it makes a lot of sense to have variations. And every gun that we have has its own variations, not just its own like sound designed for it, but also its own set of variations that it's not just the same sound over and over, and it's not just the same sound pitched slightly differently or something. It's actually worked from the source material to be unique for a few times as you fire it before it repeats, obviously, because it's not an infinite thing that you can do forever. That's something that I think some people are looking at where it's like, okay, can we somehow write software to just give you one sound and just make infinite variations from it? But it's not quite there yet, I think. It might be, actually. I might be wrong in saying that this sort of stuff moves so quickly, but at least in our case, we just have a good few variations of each gunshot, and we go over those, randomly pick them out every single time you fire the gun. And actually, because we have our gunshots, it's not just one layer of sound. It's not just one sound that plays. It's actually 3 different layers that get tweaked together differently based on what the state of you is right now. If you're inside, outside, obviously the tail is different, but also as ammo decreases in your magazine, the mechanical layer of the sound is going to get more and more noticeable until you're all the way out. So there's actually 3 layers going on, and each of those 3 layers have their own variations. So theoretically, you could say, okay, I don't know, 8 times 8 times 8 possible variations. That's being a bit pedantic to go that far, but yeah, there's enough material.
So that is why we have such great weapon sound effects. And I always love reading comments in the YouTube. It does seem you love to appreciate that sort of level of fidelity. On YouTube, we have Suspicious Toad who asks, what major limitation run-ins with Fmod that you've had to struggle to perform workarounds, if any? What jank and witchcraftedness that either y'all had to perform or get around using with Fmod? So has Fmod been like perfect to work with, or have you had like little troubles where you've had to do a little technical voodoo to get it to do what you want?
Oh, everything's janky all the time.
No tools
Fmod is
perfect.
janky. Why is this janky? Oh, Pro Tools is apparently yeah. Pro Tools is never janky. Okay, so I don't want to. I don't want
Thank you.
to affect Avid's market share. No, Fmod definitely has its fair share of jank, just sometimes based on the fact that just how it's constructed. Sometimes there's things I want to do that are sort of unlike Fmod, and so you kind of. But what's nice about Fmod is you can kind of cajole it into doing things that maybe you're not. It's not the most Fmod-y thing to do, but then again, if you mess around with it so much that you try to make it do a thing in a weird way, I mean that's almost to some degree to me the beauty of Fmod and sort of the core of Fmod, that it's so modular that you really can do crazy things with it.
The thing is,
something that's yeah.
when you have something that is super janky and has a lot of limitations, if you know the tools well enough, if you know what you're doing enough, you can always find there's always some kind of workaround to get that effect that you just can't get normally. It's weird. It shouldn't work, and it's absolutely stupid a lot of the time, but you can do it if you know what you're doing.
Yeah. So I think in concrete examples, there's just so many to mention, because the one beautiful one, and that's not necessarily just from this project, but from something that I'd worked on previously, a janky workaround for something, was because I didn't want to send reverb in a certain way to a certain channel because it would not be very flexible. I had a whole thing set up where I used it inside of a sound event. It would send the signal to a different channel, and then that channel would use an effect inside of Fmod to send it somewhere completely different, which then would run through effects, which would then send it back out to the mixer somewhere else, and it just went on this crazy goose chase. But it worked, and it sounded good, and that's something that Fmod can just allow you to do. It's like the basic, just set up like a reverb effect. That didn't work very well, but you can certainly mess around and produce something that seems very janky, but it's actually very effective and very powerful.
Like something that it's very small that like I still cry about a little bit on the inside is just there's little water dripping from the ceiling in some places, and I asked if it was possible to like change it to where, because like there was just a loop for water dripping the floor, but it wasn't synced to the particle. I was wanting to sync the actual drip noise to the particle hitting the ground, and due to jank, that was way more difficult to do.
And that's still trauma I'm working through, so thank you for trusting that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh no.
I joke. No, there's some stuff, especially anything to do with particles, is I'm not gonna. It's fine. It's totally fine.
No, everything's fine. Everything's fine. The particles can't hurt you. They can't hurt you. I'm sorry. What particles? There are no particles in 5K.
Well, all right. To move away from the difficulty of particle sound effects in Fmod, MK11 asks, how much do you spend to make the gunfire, reload, and inspect sound effects? So I guess how difficult are those to put together?
How much do we spend? In terms of money, I can't tell you, because to a certain degree, I don't even know. But in terms of time, there is a lot of time that goes into that. I mean, Stefan, shame he's not here right now, but he is our weapons mastermind. Whenever there's a new weapon that's like, okay, we need sounds for this, or whenever we need an adjustment to something, he's there and he puts in a lot of work. Really a lot of work to research what does this weapon sound like, how can I convey that, and he works with animation. Like whenever animation does something new, he's there to make a new sound for it. We've had a bunch of new animations come in this update, I think. So he's always been on those. So he is extremely dedicated. I'm extremely thankful for him and to him for all the work that he does in terms of that. Because it is a huge deal when you really break it down. Because the weapons, I mean, we keep talking about, we're praising how they sound, and they sound good for a reason. There's a lot of time spent on them to make them sound in the way that they do. So if we spent half the time on them, they wouldn't be anywhere as likable as they are now. Which is why we're continuing to work on them even still. Like some people might say, well, I don't know. That's a very some people might say, but like you could potentially say, oh well, it's fine, leave it. But when you think about it a bit deeper, it's like, well, but it could still be a little more accurate in this respect. Like, how does it sound in the distance? How does it sound in different types of rooms? So that's stuff that is being investigated right now, just because we have that drive to further the realism. And yeah.
Well, it is that drive to realism that people seem to love. Since I always, I think I mentioned it before, but I always love it when people comment on the sound effects and the animations. It's like the best in the industry, better than Call of Duty. There's always a great thing to hear. Wolf Gaming asks, are there any hidden audio illusions in SCP-5K that players may not consciously recognize? Some horror games include subliminal sounds, reversed whispers, or barely audible tones designed to subconsciously unsettle the player. SCP-5K employ any of these techniques? That's a really good question.
Okay, I'll give you a really, really short answer here. Yes, and I'm not telling you where they are. That's for you to find out, dude. I am not telling you. I'm not telling you where. You got to find it yourself, and you're gonna be like, "Whoa."
Okay, bet.
1,000 SCP infinity bucks for the person who can uncover it in the Discord. Um, what are the secret subliminal sound effects that are used to build caution? Is it kind of like that scene in Fight Club where Brad Pitt would or Tyler Durden would splice in like 1 second bits of porn to like flip out the audience?
I don't know that
I'm
scene.
not telling you.
I'm terrible.
Oh man, I thought that was like more common. There was like a scene in Fight Club where like just to like he would like just to mess with children in children's movies. He would put like 1 second scenes from X-rated movies, just to like have the little kids cry because he was kind of an asshole. I like to think that.
Yeah, so the sound department is just assholes mostly, as you can tell.
Yeah, like I mean, like a lot of the things that I added were definitely just to piss people off. Definitely, yeah, definitely professional. No, I mean, no, it's like a lot of it is just like really fun, like little Easter egg type of thing. But again, I'm not telling you where.
Well, here's the real big question. When is my bird Captain Crunch going to get to be used for sound effects for SCP 3199?
I didn't know you had a bird. I'm interested.
I'm also interested.
Yeah, I don't.
We're gonna find you.
I'm surprised you haven't heard him. He's been squawking a little bit. His name's Captain Crunch. He's a little Quaker parrot. I've had him for 20 years.
Oh,
He talks a little bit. He says, "Look, I'm a Quaker parrot, so I can dance,
All right,
dance, dance, dance."
all right. I'm gonna need you to DM me your address. I'm on my way right now.
do not open the door.
Oh, open the door. Open the door. I just have my recording equipment with me. It's nothing. I mean, nothing. I'm not taking the bird. Nothing. It's just the recording
I
equipment.
mean, I was asked once when I was walking out with my field recorder, "Is that a taser?" That's what I was asked. It's like, no.
No, it's not. Like, okay, like my mother was standing behind me. Like I said the vending machine story. My mother was standing behind me, and she told me it looked like the guy thought I was assembling some kind of firearm. That's what she told me it looked like. He was like getting really concerned because he thought it was some firearm. Saw too many James Bond movies, I think maybe.
Cal and stuff suggested, have you guys put a Discord ping in the game to screw around with people? That would be really, really devious because like that Discord ping is like my bane of my existence.
That would be Bane. Let's do
Yeah,
it.
hello, myhouse.wad.
That would be like an eternal darkness level of like messing with the audience. I would love to see that. We have a few questions. Wolf Gaming asks, "Are you exploring ambisonic or wave field synthesis techniques for immersive spatial audio?"
Synthesis.
I am like messing up all this great audio, all this great technical terms.
We're just ganging up on Isaac.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything's okay. It's okay, Isaac. You're good. You're good.
Binaural audio is common, but few games push full ambisonic environments. Would this be feasible for 5K?
I think I talked about this briefly earlier. We're looking into just ambisonic and binaural techniques. I don't think we're gonna go full ambisonic. I think that's a bit not quite. You got to also keep in mind, technology versus target market. And I'm not exactly sure if it would be the most beneficial thing for us to invest time in right now. Ambisonics, for those who don't know, I guess I'll turn this into a technical lesson. Ambisonics is a way of recording sound that is sort of more in rather than just saying, okay, this point's left, this point's right, this microphone, we now record space in a way that we can then map it around the player in height and surround information. There's different orders of ambisonic depending on how many individual signals you have. I have not even fully understood yet entirely how it works internally, but it's pretty out there, and it creates, together with just binaural audio for like point spaces. Like binaural audio you can take a source and an emitter, a sound in one point in space, and treat it as if you're hearing it in your ears. in that one point, ambisonics fill a space around you. Like when you stand in a room and it's just you're listening to the tone of the room. Rather than that being a stereo sound, you can have that be an ambisonic sound, which spatializes the room around you. And there's different orders of it: first order, second order, and third order. The most common, I think. Channel count increases with them as you go up, but also spatial precision increases. It's something, again, VR games will use these a ton, and they're getting more common in the just PC video gaming space even. But again, just if it's worth it to go full ambisonic, I don't think that is entirely necessary for us to craft the experience we want to.
Another question in regards towards other forms of programs. John Henry Chow asks, what makes Fmod a preferred choice over alternatives like OpenAL, SoLoud, or WWise for game audio? Are there specific advantages in terms of workflow, performance, or flexibility that make it stand out?
Fmod is great because it has a beautiful visual interface. Besides the features that it's loaded with, of which there are many, there's so much stuff. The visual interface is extremely easy to comprehend, especially when you're coming from a DAW, which you're gonna be doing if you're recording sound effects and you're designing sound effects, or you're writing music. Both of those fields, you can immediately understand how Fmod works in that sense, and that coupled with its powerful features, it makes it just really ideal. And again, it's sort of both lightweight in the way that it's set up, but you can really modular. You can really get crazy with how you automate things within Fmod, because it's beyond just play a sound. You can say play a sound and then tweak this parameter and then play this thing and then cause this to happen, and that responds to something else. It's just really, really nice, and you can get very, very fun with it. Whether it's a preferred method, obviously one of the things that was mentioned in that question was Wise, spelled W-Wise, but everyone just calls it Wise. Wise is an alternative, quote unquote, to Fmod, which is it does basically the same job, but it doesn't have the same graphical interface. In fact, it's structured very differently in terms of its architecture as well as its user interface. But that just makes it so much more powerful in other regards. Fmod and Wise are both beautiful, and each of them have their own strengths as well as their own weaknesses. So I'm not necessarily saying that Fmod in our case is preferred for one reason or another. We could be using Wise as well. It's just that Fmod is the solution that worked for us in this specific case, and that's what we're working with. But I mean, I guess this is less of a stance from Afray as a company and more myself personally. I really love Wise, and I'm hoping to use it more as well as in the context of Afray in the future. I'm going to be really pushing for it, but I'll have to talk to admin about that.
So there are things that you really like. Are there other programs outside of Fmod?
Oh yeah. There's plenty I love about Wise, and that there's beautiful. I'm in this constant state of whenever I'm working in Fmod, I'm just thinking, well, not constantly, but there's a lot of times where I think to myself, I wish I was working in Wise right now because this would be so easy. And then I'll be working in Wise and I'll be like, I wish I was in Fmod right now because this would be so easy. So it's just you give and take.
Every program has like advantages, and then another program will do like its disadvantages better. I mean, the best solution at times is sometimes to be able to do a combination of both, but that's not always possible either.
Yeah, unfortunately, you cannot combine Fmod and Wise. They just, you got to pick one.
Too bad. All right, so
oh gosh, someone sent the another one clip. Oh no.
So we've been going for nearly 2 hours. How are you two feeling? Should we maybe do like a 10-minute round and kind of start to wrap things up. Just want to gauge how you're feeling. It is, school night.
Like we have to go to school.
Yes, I
Yeah, I
need to
don't.
go. Yeah, I need to go to my high school courses right now. Yeah.
I don't know how do you feel, Cole? I feel like it could do another 10-15 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, I can do another 10-15 minutes.
Oh, all right, fantastic. We'll go for like another 15 minutes, and then we'll start to close things out. But get in those rapid questions about 610, about pipe organs from hell, fleshy goo monsters, all that good stuff. And again, thank you for both coming out tonight for this wonderful evening to give people the first real concrete example of what they can look forward to in update 0.16. MK11 asks, speaking of tasers, you should add tasers to the game just in case you're under attack and you don't have a gun and you gun stun things from afar. Even though you already have a knife, chem light, and pipe in the game, it would be still funny if you could tase them in the nuts. Tasers, are they applicable? What would you do to make a taser sound effect?
I would
Record a
probably get an
taser.
actual taser and tase myself with it. Maybe not.
Oh, don't
maybe
tase
not,
yourself.
Maybe not.
Someone else.
Oh, whoa, it's Albie. Guys,
Hello.
it's the technical director and president of Afray Interactive.
A wild
How you doing,
Albarni has
President?
come.
Hello. I just saw everyone in this chat and I was like, oh, what's going on here?
We're wrapping up in like 15 minutes, so I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay, well, that's fine. Like, come in at the end for the after party, right?
I'm just gonna shout out Cal for sending another 1.wav, and I'm so annoyed that sound made it out into the world. It was just a test sound, and for some reason it was included, and now it's out there, and I'm
What sound are you talking about?
yeah, it was left in there. Have you not heard
Oh.
another 1.wav? It's a recording of me with the
Oh, yeah,
with the 049 filter going. Oh my, another victim of the
You
skibbity.
showed me that. You showed me that went live. Oh no.
Is
That went live like day 1, 0.15 came out. Someone found that in the files, and I'm just like, wow. Why is it in there?
Was that in FMod or like in the dialogue?
Yeah, well,
folder?
yeah. It wasn't in the dialogue folder. It was in the asset banks because it was a test sound at some point for the journal tapes.
Oh, I
It's
see. And
just-
so it was just referenced somewhere because I assume that if it's
Yeah.
not referenced, oh no, I guess it was in a bank. So it would.
It was in
Yeah.
a bank, yeah.
We are
I'm
all
just like,
brain
wow.
rotted. And we have to hide our brain rot from the general public because
I mean, even 049 is brain rotted, as you can hear clearly.
Dinko asks, what software do you guys use for producing music/ambient sound?
I use Reaper.
It depends on who you ask. Yeah, Cool's uses Reaper.
Yeah, this program that I have open right now.
Yeah, you can see it on screen. Reaper is beautiful. Get Reaper. Use Reaper. Not sponsored. Venny uses because Venny writes a bunch of our music. He uses FL Studio for a lot of that. Stefan, what does Stefan use? Does Stefan use Reaper as well?
Yes,
As he
uses
audition?
Reaper. He uses Reaper and he uses Reaper, like Piper taught him Reaper. He used to use Sony Vegas.
I think he uses
or something.
both.
He used to
Oh,
use
wow.
Sony Vegas or something, and like it was still really good. It was insane. Like he was using Sony Vegas, and it was like insane. Like bro is like cooking in Sony Vegas.
he also
Isn't
used to
Vegas
use Audition?
Yeah, Adobe Audition.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. I thought Vegas was like only for video. So he was actually using it as like an
Yeah.
Yeah, but like you hear, like,
I'm impressed as well.
like you hear the thing, and you're like, wow, damn, what program to use him? And he was like, so, and I'm like, it's like Sony Vegas, and it's like, damn, bro, he cooking.
Yeah, so yeah, Cole's Reaper, and then Venomous is using FL Studio. Stefan is using Reaper, Audition, and Vegas. Apparently, well, maybe not anymore, but he's capable in all of those. I use Cubase for music, and Nuendo for sound effects, which they're pretty much the same. So yeah, it's fine.
Well, it is that is interesting to hear that like there's so much variety in terms of what programs you use to actually build sounds that you kind of like let people use what they're most comfortable for versus having like you have to use Reaper or else whatchamacallit. Oops, sorry.
Just to some degree, there's some merit in that actually, because there's a Reaper is really great, and honestly, if I'm honest to myself, I should just learn Reaper. I can use Reaper. I'm not using it. I'm the odd one out, strangely.
Do you need
And,
some lessons?
I don't need any lessons. I can learn myself. Reaper is genuinely great, and I know it looks. If you look at it, you'd think, yeah, this looks nice, but surely it's not industry standard. But it really has become an industry standard for all the right reasons. Frankly, there's so much you could do with it. There's a lot of modularity. I love its feature of being able to modulate basically any parameter you want. It's really good, and so there's a lot of cases that you will find game companies just use Reaper, and everyone uses Reaper. So I guess in that sense, I'm the bad one.
Yeah.
DCR.
Yeah.
I should just.
DCR has a question for Al Barney. When's SCP 2761? #, justice for 2761, aka Bananazilla.
That's Bananazilla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to. We always run into this thing with monsters. Is like we set a scope for the game. We have like all these documents that say like this is how much we're willing to do for the game. How much we can do, how much we're going to do, and how much we could do if we really wanted to add things. And the problem is, like with monsters, like adding them is just like so much work because every single department, like you've got programming, the AI stuff, animation, 3D, and audio, as well as some litany of huge amounts of like smaller tasks on the side to make it a monster happen. Especially at the quality standard that we want to do, because like, for example, if it was a mod, right, like people are willing to, it's a free mod, it's fine if it doesn't look great or if it doesn't play great or whatever. But when it's in like a game, that we're selling to people for money, there's a way higher quality bar, and so it takes a lot of work. I do, like, in my heart of hearts, I really would love to have 2761, because I think it's funny, it's cute. I love the thing going on. Maybe if we, tell a friend, if we get $1 gazillion, we could change that.
I would love to make banana monster sounds. I'm just gonna say that right now. That would be terror. That would be like
Whalers and
spin-off DLC.
Anyone got $1 gazillion? We'll make it worth your while.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have $1 gazillion
Thanks,
in Monopoly money. Does that count?
Yeah, maybe.
Any children of Elon Musk perusing this right now?
Oh, God.
I'm not sure if I want Elon Musk's money.
I think we have to overthrow a government for that, but like, let's just we'll stay clear of the politics.
Yes.
So cool. How do you record a banana monster sound? Because like, with the taser, you're like, okay, I'd get a taser and I'd tase myself, but like you can't. What are you, banana yourself? Like that doesn't work.
Well, hey, listen. That's a challenge. That is a challenge for future cools. After he receives $1 gazillion. Like, remember, we are asking for $1 gazillion. I will have near infinite resources at that point.
Oh, I see.
But,
yeah.
But like, okay,
Don't worry about it now, Albie. It's going to
real.
be answered in due time.
For real,
I
I
see.
would probably I would definitely get a banana, like for the Foley. Like, I'm just like thinking, like for the Foley of it moving around. Like, get a banana.
Oh, I see. Like when it
And-
steps, you'd like squish a banana into the ground, kind of thing.
Yeah, and then some stuff with the banana peel, like I don't know, like that would have to, like I would have to experiment a lot with the types of sounds that a banana peel can make. I would have to check, but I would absolutely.
I think the most
sorry.
the most difficult part, I would imagine, is just the vocals. Like, what does a banana sound like? That
Yeah, what
speaks
does
and roars?
What does a banana sound like? That's definitely the question. Do I have to eat like 20,000 bananas to find the answer and become part banana myself? Well, I'll have to try it. That's where all the money goes. It goes into the
You eat-
bananas that I have to eat.
So much bananas that you die of like potassium.
It's called an R&D budget.
The R&D budget. But like, like something I want to do with 3199's eggs is like I want to purchase like a what was it? A
Oh, God, you're not
ostrich
gonna
egg.
stop
I
on
want
the
to get ostrich
Oh,
eggs.
no.
But like I would definitely do that for the banana. Like I would get like the rarest bananas and just figure out, okay, like which one of these of the banana species makes the best sound. Like that is basically what I would do. I wouldn't go
Oh,
for your
you would
regular
buy
old-
one of every type of banana?
Not necessarily, but like I would do research and try and figure out like, okay, what is the best thing to go for here? Because you can use store bananas, right? But like if I were to go to the lengths that if I were to go to the lengths for the banana monster, I mean banana monster, you wanna go all out. You wanna get the best banana for the sound, right? Because they're all slightly different species, right?
Yeah. What
I
if,
would want to
like,
experiment with that.
if you have like a dog or a cat, you know how like you can get those little booties, except you chop off half a banana and put it on the bottom of the booty so that whenever
Oh
they
yeah,
flop around-
yeah. We just bully the animals. Okay, no.
No, not bullying.
I know.
Like
It's
it'd
funny
be
banana
someone
feet.
who's comfortable at it. Yeah.
Funny banana feet.
Well,
Yeah,
DCR.
what has this stream become?
Well, DCR.
Are you questioning the bananas?
I'm sorry.
DCR says he's a mix of DNA, so just make a mix of noises and adding banana noises. So
You're right. I just combine the banana together. I'll just glue them together.
No one has explained what a banana noise is. Generally, I don't go, oh my god, can someone shut
That's
those
such a
bananas up?
banana
Like
noise.
it's so loud. Oh my god, these bananas all the like.
What are they saying?
ooh,
Oh,
banana.
Okay. If I had to pick a particular type of banana to portray their body movements, which banana would it be? I'll ask you guys.
What type of banana?
Yeah. Like what type of banana are we thinking, guys?
Mm. I'd say a ladyfinger. That's what it's called, right? The regular sort of common ones.
What about a dull banana?
Types. Isn't that a brand?
Could be right. I do not know individual banana species.
I think Dole is a. Hang on, let's see.
But Suspicious Toad
Dole
says
is absolutely a brand.
Cools mentioned earlier that the
It's
latest
not a
SCP.
type of banana.
I was wrong about that.
Yeah.
Cools mentioned that earlier that the last SCP he remembered when looking at the articles was a painting SCP that grabs you. If Cools was given authority, would Super Bananazilla 64 theme have a chance to be canon? I mean, I guess as much of a canon as anything else in the SCP universe.
Super Banana 64. That's good.
I don't know if I would make it canon. I would if it maybe a DLC, maybe, but we would have to see.
Like a DLC where it's just like all the gameplay of Super Mario 64, except just Bananas.
It's just it's just Super Mario 64, but you're in Area 12 and you're just like looking around to collect all the Omni key cards or something.
I think what the people are crying for is a crossover between SCP-5K and Donkey Kong 64, where you have to collect a bajillion bananas.
Oh yeah, you have to assemble the Bananazilla yourself with all the bananas.
And then you fight it as the final boss. While you have like the MIDI soundtrack of the Nintendo 64 with all its 12 megabytes of processing power.
Unironically, I would love to be able to do like some cutesy MIDI soundtrack, like something cutesy or like more properly video gamey. I would love to do that.
And you'd have to like hide it as a secret or something, or maybe like if there was an arcade machine.
Just put it on a radio, just some random radio somewhere.
Oh, yeah,
Just
that's
like
true,
someone's
yeah.
personal radio.
Wolf Gaming had this more technical question. How do you account for the psychoacoustic masking in SCP-5K's audio mix to ensure critical low-level environment cues like distant gunfire, enemy breathing, and structural creaks remain perceptible without overpowering the mix, especially in dynamic shifting combat scenarios where gunfire, explosions, and voice comms are all competing for auditory space? I may have already asked this, but I don't think you have.
I'm impressed that you managed to say that all in one
like-
go.
I'm starting to think, starting to wonder if these questions are asked by ChatGPT. Because I'm with there's a lot of big words to say. Not anyway.
What they're saying is, we're proud of you. We're proud of you.
Who?
Isaac.
Oh well,
Yes.
Well, thank you, but so what would you say though in terms of I don't know? It sounded like a very impressive question.
We're working on creating a more dynamic mix every single update, and it's a big learning curve, but we're gonna get there. There you go. It's a lot of, I mean, yeah, no, it's a lot of paying attention, and there's obviously a lot of mixing techniques that you can employ to make sure that things don't get overpowered, because that's essentially what we're talking about here. But it is a constant struggle, especially when you think new content, because new content obviously shifts how everything fits in with each other. So yeah, right now it's a constant process, and we're still working on it. And over time, it's just going to get better and better.
Yeah, the other thing that's worth noting that I know is a big struggle is that it's not like a film where your mix is like your final mix, and
Yeah.
like, mix everything all into one. The number of sounds playing and what sounds are playing at any given time changes, and what is important to be heard like really matters from a gameplay. Is almost like a design consideration as well as a audio consideration, which means that the audio team really have to put on a lot of hats in order to consider that and make that work. Like one example would be like the footsteps. I know we've encountered this with we've revealed that it's 610, right? I think so.
Yeah,
Like-
and no, I don't. What is the monster?
Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh no. I'm pretty sure we have. I think it's in the teaser. Yes, like the footsteps and the breathing with 610. I think it was that. Like we had a lot of issues where like it was too quiet and stuff like that we always have with footsteps, but like suddenly the difference between like having 2 behind you where you need to know that they're there, but then like having 20 behind you, if they're all playing the same footstep sounds and stuff, like suddenly that becomes way louder.
Mhm.
In a way that like could be totally overpowering to the mix. I can't remember if it was footsteps specifically, but it was something like that where like you have to account for the fact that not only could the sounds change, but the amount of them can change on a big scale, and it still has to sound good. You need to be able to hear everything that's going on. It's a lot of work. I respect the audio team for their work in that respect.
Aw.
So with that, I think that was a fantastic way to look at the wonderful work that the audio team has done, especially at this wonderful preview, SCP-610, the Bagpipe from Hell. Thank you for coming out for this evening of overview of audio. Thank you for Cools and Corvus for taking your time to take us behind the scenes. And remember, this Saturday we are having the Devs versus Discord community event of playing not SCP but Left 4 Dead 2. We will eventually, yes, we will eventually. Maybe Al Barney and Cools will be there. Maybe Evelyn.
Oh, I'll be there.
Cools he better be there. He's got the coach icon. So
yeah,
Mhm.
You were born for this.
yeah. Okay, I'm
I
just gonna
apologize.
preface this. I'm just gonna preface this. I have 10,000 hours left in it too. Sorry.
Oh my
That's
god.
gonna. Yeah, that's.
I'll be too busy. I'll be playing D&D. I'm sorry.
No, that's a shame. I'm pretty sure I'll be there. I have to work out I have a lot of stuff to do to prepare for GDC, which is coming up. But I'm pretty sure I'll be able to be there for the Depth versus Discord.
So I hope that we've got like 2 or 3 teams who've signed up. So if you have you and a squad of 3 other people in the Discord, please sign up. I believe in the announcements I have a link to the Google form. I will be in touch to coordinate with all of the teams who will be competing against the Afraid developers. We will be having a score chart to see who can come out on top, who can win the most. Will it be the devs? Or will the Discord be the best gamers? Who will be the kings of this event? Well, you'll have to come in on Saturday to find out. Only then will you see. And also next week, a week from today, we will be having Bowman and Sherman of Site 42 talk about lore. So bring all your Chaos Insurgency and GOC questions because they will be doing a very interesting, very special presentation coming to give you more details about the GOC as well as 610. So I hope all of you can make it there and put it on your calendars. It will be around this time next week. So with that, I give you adieu. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for Wild Al Barney. It is always a pleasure when you pop in to surprise. It's a shame you couldn't come in earlier. And with that, I give you the stage to give your final farewells for the evening for you, Pools and Corvus.
Thank you so much for being here and listening to us talk about all of this stuff. Again, give it up for Coles. He does so much, from the most basic of ambient sound effects to 610 to providing voices like the D class. I mean, yeah. Appreciate him. Appreciate you all for coming here.
Well, shout outs to Evelyn for being able to sort through all the freaking madness that I create, because like I create so many insane things and then I just kind of dump it. I'm like, hey, can we do this? Can we do this? And like, like being able to actually do the thing that like I'm looking for, like that's just insane. Being able to actually, like it's like, oh my god, like if Evelyn wasn't here, this would sound like completely different game. Let's say that.
Certainly, yeah.
And any final wise words of wisdom from you, Al Barney?
I mean, stay excited for Point 16. I'm really, really hyped for it. It pains me so much to not be able to share yet about it. But we have some really awesome materials that we're going to be releasing soon, and I think people are going to be fucking hyped about it.
I can't wait for you guys to see what they're cooking up. I've seen some of the behind the scenes stuff, and it's really, really.
There is one super secret thing I will spoil for you. It's very windy. The end.
It's very weird.
It's so windy.
Evelyn also kind of spoiled it earlier. She said that that the 0.16 update is night and day. It's gonna have night and day.
Oh, no!
That was really.
Oh,
I can't believe it, honestly.
Fired.
Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you guys. It was a great last stream.
Yeah.
Don't tell them that there's guns in the game as well.
No, what are you doing?
No.
See how good Cools can yell? So yeah, there you go.
He's a good D class.